The desert, vast, silent, and unforgiving. A place where the sun scorches by day, and ancient whispers rise with the wind at night. But not everything out here is natural. Some things lurk just beyond the dunes. Things that shouldn't exist. Tonight, we bring you 10 true horror stories from the heart of the American desert. From ghost towns and cursed highways. One. The Death Valley Germans, 1996. It began like any other adventure. In the scorching summer of 1996, 4 German tourists, Egbert Rimkus, his son Georg, his girlfriend Cornelia Meyer, and her son Max, landed in California. Their itinerary was ambitious: explore the vast American West. Their rental was a teal 1996 Plymouth Voyager. What they didn't know was that their journey would end in the most desolate, unforgiving part of the country, Death Valley. They were last seen in Furnace Creek, asking a ranger about road conditions through a remote area known as Anvil Canyon. The ranger warned them the route was rough, barely passable even for off-road vehicles. But they went anyway. No one saw them alive again. Months later, their minivan was discovered, stranded in a rocky wash, miles from any paved road. Inside were empty water bottles, neatly folded clothes, and a German-English dictionary. The van had a dead battery. No footprints. No bodies. For 3 years, there was nothing but silence. Then, in 1999, a group of searchers stumbled upon something grim in the desert. Scattered bones. Human remains. The arid air had preserved parts of them, but time and vultures had done the rest. DNA confirmed it was the missing Germans. They had walked for over 10 miles under the searing sun, trying to reach help. But here's the thing that still unsettles people. Why did they take such a dangerous route? Why leave a working minivan with shade and supplies to walk through hell? Some locals whisper they were called deeper into the desert, that something lured them, an old presence in Death Valley that feeds on desperation and heat-induced madness. There are tales of travelers seeing ghostly figures on the horizon, or hearing whispers on the wind that make them veer off course. To this day, the full story of the Death Valley Germans remains unknown. But one thing is certain: the desert doesn't give back its secrets easily. And sometimes it doesn't give back its people at all. 2. The Skinwalker of the Navajo Desert. They say the desert keeps its own kind of silence. Not peaceful, not calm, but heavy, like something is always watching. Deep in the dusty stretch of the Navajo Desert, where red rock cliffs rise like jagged teeth and the wind seems to carry voices, there's a legend the locals don't tell outsiders lightly: the Skinwalker. In Navajo lore, a Skinwalker is a witch, a person who has turned against the natural order, performing unspeakable rituals to gain dark power. They wear the skin of animals, wolves, coyotes, owls, and in doing so they become them. Faster, stronger, cruel. But it's not just a story to scare children. In 1983, a family living in a remote part of northeast Arizona began reporting strange activity around their ranch. It started small: scratches on the barn door, missing chickens, distant howling even on windless nights. Then came the footprints. Massive paw prints in the sand that ended abruptly as if the creature had vanished into thin air. One night, the father heard something scratching at the windows. When he stepped outside with a flashlight, he saw a coyote standing on 2 legs. It stared at him with human eyes, piercing, intelligent, and full of hate. The creature let out a sound like a scream choked in a growl, and sprinted into the darkness, faster than any animal should be able to run. They moved out the next week, but the stories kept coming. Hikers lost in the desert claimed to see shapes in the rocks, silhouettes watching them from impossible distances. Campers hear whispers just beyond the light of their fires. Some say the Skinwalker can mimic voices, call your name in the voice of someone you trust. And once you answer, you're marked. Locals carry ash and cedar, or paint protective symbols around their homes. They don't go out at night. And they never, ever say the creature's name aloud, because to name it is to call it. So next time you're driving through the Navajo Desert under a blood-red sunset, and you think you see something move out of the corner of your eye, don't stop. Don't look back. Because if the stories are true and the Skinwalker has seen you, it's already too late. 3. The Phantom of Route 66. The road is long, straight, and empty. Route 66, once the lifeline of America's West, is now a graveyard of forgotten gas stations, boarded-up motels, and dusty diners frozen in time. Travelers say there's a certain stretch near Arizona, somewhere between Kingman and Seligman, where time doesn't move right, and if you drive it late at night, you might meet her. They call her the Woman in White. Legend says she appears around 2 or 3 a.m., walking along the shoulder in a flowing white dress, face hidden beneath a curtain of long dark hair. If you're driving alone, she seems to shimmer in your headlights, too solid to be a hallucination, too strange to be real. A trucker in 2007 swerved to avoid her and crashed his rig into a ditch. He survived, but swore he saw her eyes glowing as he blacked out. Another man picked her up, thinking she was a stranded hitchhiker. She didn't speak, just pointed down the road. After a few miles, he looked over, and the seat was empty, though the door had never opened. Some say she was killed in a hit-and-run back in the 1950s, wearing her prom dress, trying to hitch a ride after her car broke down. Others say she's older than the highway itself, a desert spirit, drawn to the souls of the lonely and lost. Drivers who see her often report strange electrical problems. Radios turn to static, cell phones glitch, dashboard lights flicker. And worst of all, sometimes after you see her, you start seeing her again. In reflections. In your backseat mirror. At the edge of your headlights on a foggy morning. They say you should never stop. Never open your doors. And if you see a woman in white waving at the side of the road, just keep driving. Because once she notices you, she doesn't forget. 4. The mysterious lights of Marfa, Texas. The desert doesn't sleep at night. Out in the remote stretches of West Texas, near the lonely town of Marfa, something strange flickers in the distance. Locals call them the Marfa lights. Bright orbs, white, red, blue, sometimes green, dancing just above the desert floor, moving with purpose. They hover, split, disappear, reappear somewhere else entirely. They've been seen for over 100 years. Some say it started with the Apache, who believed they were restless spirits. Cowboys passing through in the 1800s wrote about floating lanterns in their journals. In the 1950s, travelers on Route 90 began pulling over to stare into the distance, where the lights would play like ghosts, teasing them just out of reach. But not everyone comes back the same. A young couple once stopped to watch the lights from their car. The girlfriend swore she saw a figure standing within the lights, watching them. When she blinked, it was gone, but she couldn't stop crying afterward. "It looked like me," she whispered. But it smiled wrong. A researcher camped out alone to study the lights with high-tech equipment. His recordings were normal, except for the last few minutes. A low hum filled the audio. The screen shook. Then the video cut out. He was found the next morning, wandering barefoot in the desert, muttering something in a language no one recognized. Skeptics say it's car headlights, mirages, geological gas. But there's a problem. The lights were reported long before cars ever came to Marfa. And gas doesn't move in patterns, stop midair, or follow you for miles. Many who witnessed the lights describe a strange sensation, a tingling on the back of the neck like being watched. Some say the lights react to emotions, flashing when you're scared, drifting closer when you try to walk away. There's even a rumor among local teens. If you stare at the lights long enough and you think about someone who's died, they might appear in the light just for a moment. But no one knows what happens if you follow them. No one who has ever made it back.
5. The Lost Dutchman's Mine and the Apache Curse. They say there's gold in the Superstition Mountains. Not just any gold, a hidden treasure so vast it could buy empires. But if that were true, why has everyone who searched for it died? The legend begins in the mid-1800s. A German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, nicknamed the Dutchman, claimed to have found an ancient mine deep in the rugged cliffs of Arizona's Superstition Mountains. He never told anyone where it was, not even on his deathbed in 1891, but people say he left behind a crude map, full of cryptic symbols, impossible to decode. Ever since then, treasure hunters have gone into those mountains with pickaxes, food, and dreams. Most never come back. Some are found months later, bones picked clean by vultures. Others vanish completely, leaving only campfires burned out and gear scattered across the sand. But the Apache knew better. Long before Waltz, they called those mountains the place where evil dwells. According to tribal elders, the mine was cursed, guarded by spirits of the underworld, angry that their sacred land had been desecrated by greed. Some stories say the gold itself is a trap, a lure to draw people in. The deeper you go, the stronger the pull becomes. In 1931, a man named Adolf Ruth, a seasoned treasure hunter, went in with a pistol and a map he thought was real. He never returned. Months later, his skull was found, with a bullet hole in it, but the rest of his body was never recovered. His journal said, he was close. Wayne VD Wiki. He wrote, "I came, I saw, I conquered. Then, nothing." Some who enter the mountains speak of strange phenomena. Compasses spinning out of control. Unnatural fog in the canyons. Echoes that don't match your voice. whispers in languages no one alive speaks. And at night, some hear the sound of pickaxes echoing from the cliffs. When no one else is around, the curse doesn't always kill right away. Some say it follows you, long after you've left. One man claimed he escaped the mountains with a gold nugget the size of a fist. A week later, he was dead in a house fire. His partner was found wandering the desert, eyes burned blind, screaming about figures in the stone. To this day, people still search for the lost Dutchman's mine. Maps surface, new clues are found. But those who know the land best, the native people, the old hikers, the locals who refuse to step foot in those mountains, they all say the same thing. The gold is real, but so is the curse. And the superstition mountains are hungry. 6. The Mojave phone booth and the phantom caller. In the middle of absolutely nowhere, deep in the Mojave Desert, there once stood a lone phone booth. No towns nearby, no homes, just sand, heat, and a rusted payphone ringing in the wind. Originally installed in the 1960s for remote miners and homesteaders, the booth was located miles from civilization, down rough dirt roads that most cars couldn't even drive. For decades, it sat forgotten, until the late 1990s when someone discovered its number online. That's when things got weird. People from around the world began calling the number, and sometimes, someone answered. Not just travelers, not just pranksters. Sometimes, it was a voice that didn't sound quite right. One man who camped there alone claimed the phone rang at exactly 3:33 a.m. when he picked it up. He heard his own voice on the other end, whispering his name. Then came static, and a sound like someone breathing. Another visitor said they answered a call from a woman sobbing, speaking in fragments. "He won't let me leave," she said, "the sand. It moves at night." The line went dead. Others reported hearing strange tones, unintelligible codes, or numbers repeating over and over like coordinates. A man who traced those numbers later claimed they led him to a spot in the desert where he found nothing but a single melted shoe. One traveler even swore he saw the phone ringing with no line connected, no power at all, just the sun-baked shell of a booth, humming like it was alive. And then there's the story of the phantom caller. They say if you stay by the booth long enough, alone, in silence, the phone will ring. When you answer, a voice will speak. Not someone you know, but someone who knows you. They'll tell you things no one else could. Secrets, memories, regrets, and then they'll ask you a question. You must never answer. Because if you do, your voice gets pulled through the wire. And you leave something behind. No one knows exactly why the booth was removed in 2000. Some say it was vandalism. Others say too many people were trespassing. But the locals whispered that the real reason was different. It wouldn't stop ringing, even after the line was disconnected, even after the booth was gone. Some say you can still hear it on quiet nights, if you're near where it once stood. A lone phone, buried in the desert, still trying to reach someone. 7. Yucca Man, the beast of the California desert. The Mojave is quiet at night, but not silent. Out near Joshua Tree, by 29 Palms Marine Base, strange things are whispered about over campfires and passed down from soldier to soldier. They call him the Yucca Man, and if you're out there past midnight, they say he's watching you. He's not a man, not exactly. He's not Bigfoot either, though people compare them. The Yucca Man is taller, leaner, and far more aggressive. Covered in matted dark hair, with glowing green eyes and a putrid smell, he moves without sound until he wants you to hear him. The legend truly exploded in 1971. When a Marine guard at 29 Palms was found unconscious at his post, his rifle bent in half like a twig. He claimed a huge creature came out of the desert and charged him. He blacked out after it roared in his face. Military officials wrote it off as heat stroke. Locals weren't so sure. Since then, hikers in Joshua Tree National Park have reported massive footprints in the sand, far from any trail. Sudden, overwhelming fear in certain canyons. Screams echoing across the rocks, too deep to be human. Something tapping on tents in the middle of the night when they unzip the flap. There's nothing there. But the brush nearby is moving. One camper said he was stalked for hours, hearing heavy footsteps just outside his lantern's glow. When he finally shone his light into the trees, he saw two glowing green eyes at least 8 feet up, staring back at him. The thing didn't run. It just smiled. Some believe the Yucca Man is a desert spirit, awakened by the destruction of sacred land. Others think he's a mutated relic, a survival of something prehistoric, older than the desert itself. A few whisper he's a government experiment gone wrong, one that escaped and never stopped running. But one thing everyone agrees on. He's real, and he doesn't like being seen. So if you're camping out near Joshua Tree, and you hear something heavy brushing past your tent, don't go outside. Don't shine your light. Don't move, because if the Yucca Man knows you're awake, he'll come closer. 8. Highway 93, Arizona's Death Road. They call it the most dangerous highway in Arizona. But danger here isn't just about car crashes and blind turns. There's something else on Highway 93. something not entirely human. The road stretches between Wickenburg and Hoover Dam, cutting through the vast Arizona desert, a bleak, beautiful nothingness. Travelers often report a strange sense of dread as the sun dips below the jagged mountains, the kind that makes you check your mirrors a little too often and lock your doors, even in broad daylight. Over the years, people have vanished. Single-car accidents with no clear cause, abandoned vehicles, doors open, headlights still on. In some cases, personal belongings, wallets, phones are found inside, but the driver is gone, forever. Locals say it's not just a dangerous road, it's a cursed one. The Hitchhiker in Black. One of the most persistent stories is about a man in black, seen walking along the roadside late at night. He wears a long coat, wide-brimmed hat, and never lifts his head. If you stop to offer help, he vanishes. If you pass him, you might see him again, a few miles up. Then again, closer this time. Some who saw him said he eventually appeared in their back seat, just for a second, always silent, always staring. The woman in the road. Others have reported seeing a woman covered in blood, stumbling in the middle of the highway. When they stop, she screams for help. He's still out there, she says, but when they try to call 911, the signal drops to static. Then she disappears. Several drivers later found bloody handprints on their windows, but nothing inside. Phantom lights in the truck that isn't there. Truckers claim they've been chased by blinding headlights in the rearview mirror, speeding up fast, too fast, barreling down on them. When they pull over, nothing passes. No car, no sound, just the desert. One man swore he was rammed off the road by a massive semi with no driver. The police found skid marks but no other vehicle. He's never driven that stretch again. Locals avoid Highway 93 at night. Some say it's where the desert eats the living, a thin place where reality slips, where echoes of death and despair walk alongside your car. So if you ever find yourself on Highway 93 and your headlights start to flicker, if your GPS spins or your radio goes to static, and especially if you see a figure standing in the road up ahead, don't stop, don't slow down. Just drive, and pray you make it to the other side. 9. The Cabeza Preta Beast, Terror of the Sonoran Desert. There's a place in southwestern Arizona where few dare to go, the Cabeza Preta National Wildlife Refuge. Hundreds of miles of barren, brutal desert, no cell service, no rescue, and temperatures that can melt your sanity. Border Patrol agents whisper about it. Smugglers fear it. Hikers don't come back, because something else lives there. A thing the desert doesn't speak of in the daytime, but at night, it hunts. What is the beast? The first sightings go back to the 1940s, when military pilots flying over the desert reported seeing a massive shadow racing across the sand, too fast to be a man, too smooth to be a vehicle. From the air, it looked like a large humanoid figure, running on all fours, covered in coarse black fur. Locals dubbed it the Cabeza Preta Beast. Described as between 8 and 10 feet tall, with elongated limbs, glowing amber eyes, and razor-like claws, the creature moves silently until it screams. Those who've heard it say it sounds like a child wailing, followed by a low guttural growl that vibrates in your bones. The missing migrants. In recent years, Border Patrol agents have reported coming across strangely mutilated remains, not consistent with animal attacks. Organs removed, no blood, strange spiral patterns carved into the sand nearby. Migrants crossing the desert have told of being stalked for days. They hear footsteps circling their camp, find rocks stacked in impossible ways, or see tall shapes watching from hilltops then gone when the sun rises. Some swear the beast can mimic voices. A man who survived the crossing said it called out to him using his brother's voice, his brother who had died a week earlier. It said, "I found water," just before disappearing into the dark. Government denials and whispers of black sites. Stranger still, there are stories of military lockdowns in parts of the refuge. Unmarked helicopters, strange black trucks, sealed off areas that don't appear on official maps. Some believe the beast isn't natural, that it's man-made, the product of a failed bioexperiment buried in the desert after things got out of control. Others think it's not from here at all. Some kind of interdimensional predator, using the vast emptiness of the Sonoran Desert as its hunting ground. A place where no one will hear you scream, and no one will find your bones. One rule, stay out after dark. Today, Cabeza Preta remains one of the least traveled places in the continental U.S. There are no marked trails, no lights, and no help. Rangers warn visitors never to stray too far from base camp. Never walk without light. And above all, never follow the sound of a voice, no matter how familiar it sounds. Because out there, in the endless black of the Sonoran night, something is always listening. 10. The Windover Lights, Utah, Nevada's desert, ghost signals. Drive west out of Salt Lake City. Keep going until the lights vanish, the road straightens, and the world flattens into an ocean of white. You're in the Bonneville Salt Flats now, and just beyond sits Windover. To some, it's just a sleepy border town with cheap buffets and faded neon. But ask anyone who's lived there long enough, and they'll tell you. The lights come at night. And they're not from here. What are the Wendover lights? Seen mostly on moonless nights, the lights appear in the distance, usually low on the horizon, floating, shifting, impossibly bright. Some describe them as orbs, others as long, narrow beams that pulse like a heartbeat. They aren't headlights, they aren't planes. They don't follow laws of physics. Sometimes they hover, sometimes they zip away at unnatural speeds, faster than anything man-made. Even stranger, when you try to film them, the camera glitches or the lights vanish entirely. The Vanishing Hunters. One of the earliest modern reports came in 1972 when 2 hunters went missing near the flats. Their truck was found, keys still in the ignition, doors open, no footprints leading away. Locals searched for days. At sunset on the 3rd day, a massive blue light was seen rising from the flats. Multiple people witnessed it. As it vanished, one of the hunters came stumbling into town, naked, dehydrated, eyes burned. He never spoke again. The other was never found. Voices in the static. Truckers who pass through the area often report radio interference, old songs cutting in, voices in foreign or reversed languages, or emergency broadcast tones with no warning attached. One man claimed he heard a woman whisper his name through his CB radio, his name, and then the words, "Look behind you." When he did, he saw a blinding white light reflected in his rear window, and nothing else. The Salt Flat Theories. Some believe the Wendover lights are tied to underground military testing, as Wendover Airfield was once used for top-secret operations during World War II, including atomic bomb prep. Maybe something was left behind, or opened. Others think it's the land itself. Ancient and flat, the Bonneville Salt Flats may sit on some kind of energy nexus. The Goshoot people who lived here long before the towns and bases believe the desert is a thinning place where spirits, ancestors, and otherworldly things pass between dimensions. In some, they think the lights are not just watching, they're calling, drawing people away from the roads, from safety into the open salt, where your voice doesn't echo and your shadow fades long before the sun does. One last warning: if you ever find yourself driving west past Wendover after midnight and you see a glowing light just off the road, don't follow it, don't investigate, don't try to capture it, and for the love of whatever you believe in, don't answer if it speaks your name.